This whole chapter, you can call it the fool's chapter. About every verse is referring to the fool or the slothful. By the way, all slothfuls are fools. If you are lazy, you're a fool. Now, not all fools are slothful. There's very proactive, stupid people. All right? There are people who work really hard at being dumb, and they never rest. But every slothful person is a fool. The fool category includes the slothful. So, verse 1, as snow in the summer and as rain in the harvest, so honor is not seemly in a fool. The way to put this is, don't honor a fool. It is out of place as snow in the summertime. Don't honor the fool. It's dangerous. If it snows during the summer, it will damage and destroy crops, and for an agrarian society, that can be deadly. Rain in the harvest can cause the harvested crop to rot. Giving honor to a fool only heightens their foolishness. If you give in to a fool's foolishness, they just go off the deep end even further. That's what this is trying to tell us. Have you guys heard about the Venezuelan election? In Venezuela, they had an election. And there's this guy by the name of Maduro, and he lost the election. But he was in charge of the election, so he told everybody that he won. The ballots that were counted says that he won. All of the exit polls show that he lost big time. But he stole the election. You can vote in communism and socialism, but you have to fight your way out. They voted this fella in, and people are getting upset because they did not vote for him. They know they did not vote for him. You think September the 6th was a big... not September the 6th, January 6th, when there's a riot in the Capitol, if that was a big deal, what's going on down there is even bigger. So what did you think that he suggested in order to bring everybody back to the table and calm everything down? Did he talk about, let's have a blue ribbon commission to talk about security of the elections? No, he didn't do that. Did he try to show evidence that nobody messed with the election? No, he didn't do that. What did he do? He suggested that they needed to move Christmas from December to October. In an interview, he says it's already beginning to smell a lot like Christmas. What does Christmas smell like in Venezuela in October? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, this man is a fool, and they have given him honor, and it's gone to his head. And so he's trying to get everybody tore up, upset. Well, I like Christmas. Why are you messing with Christmas? Everybody's now talking about Christmas, and they ain't talking about the fact they stole the election. Now remember, the fool is somebody who rejects God, rejects God's wisdom. And the fool doesn't mind sacrificing his honor because he honestly does not have any. So, do not honor a fool. Number 2, as a bird by wandering and as the swallow by flying, so the curse causes shall not come. Costless will not come. Like an aimless wandering bird, or the aimless flying of birds around, so is the cursing of a fool. Now, here we're talking about curses like may the lice of 1,000 camels inhabit your underarms, or something like that. The idea is that you're calling a curse. Sorry about that. Calling a curse down on somebody, and the fool just like a bird flying around is curse on you, and curse on you, and curse on you, and curse, 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 curse. And the fact of the matter is, it's like, dude, if there's no reason, do you really think God's going to do anything? The answer is no, shut up. You're a fool, right? That's what the whole point of that is. A whip for the horse's back, a bridle for the ass, and a rod for the fool's back. You know, you can train a horse, and you can train a donkey, you can train a dolphin, you can have them jump through hoops and everything else. But one thing you can't do is train a fool. You go to a wise person and you tell the wise person, you give them some gentle criticism. Hey, I think you need to make this adjustment or that adjustment. And guess what they do? They fix it. And they say, thank you so much for your opinion. And that's a wonderful thing. But to a fool, that don't work. The only thing that works for them is force. That's what it's talking about, a rod on his back. Back then, they had a rod, which is a metal, I believe it was like a hollow piece of, not bamboo, but something similar, and they would whack the guy on his back as a form of corporal punishment. The only thing that works with a fool is force. That's why we have police, because there are fools out there who do, like I said, I watch body cam videos, and it is amazing. They pull somebody over and say, "May I see your driver's license, please?" And they hand him an ID card. He goes, "This ain't a driver's license." He goes, "I know." He goes, "You're suspended, aren't you?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Then why are you driving?" "Well, just be quiet." This one time, this one cop pulled over a 14-year-old boy without even a learner's permit when there was a woman sitting next to him with a driver's license, and he says, "Why aren't you driving?" And she says, "I'm pregnant." So does that mean that you can't put your hands on the... Why is a 14-year-old without a driver's license driving you around if you're so concerned about your baby? He says, "Y'all need to call somebody because I'm towing your car because I have to." But the point of it is that when somebody is being foolish, there has to be force applied to them. Like a stubborn donkey, you'll have to make them do what's right. And that's why we have a police force. These next two verses, 4 and 5, have been pointed out by idiots that there are a contradiction in your Bible. May I point out that the people who wrote the Bible could read? Will you agree that people who wrote the Bible could read? Right? Okay. Generally, reading and writing are complementary skills. So if you're writing something and the very next verse seems to contradict it, either you're incredibly stupid or there's something else that you're saying. So in this verse, it says two things. It says, number one, "Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou be like unto him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit." It's a contradiction. No, it's not. There are times when answering a fool makes you look just as much of a fool as the fool itself. "You did this." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "Did not," "did to," "did not," "did." You're a fool. Shut up. That doesn't do any good. You're being just like him. If you have to become a fool to answer the fool, keep your mouth shut. That's with the first verse. But there are times when you need to answer the fool according to his folly, unless he is wise. You know what? There's not been a single person who's ever died of an inoculation. Really? And then you say, "Well, what about this person? What about that person? What about this? What about that? What about the vaccine adverse reaction reporting system?" And they go, "What?" "Yeah, there's a whole reporting system for people who have adverse reactions to vaccines." "Well, I didn't know that." "Yeah, I know you didn't know that." Now, I say that because if somebody says, "All rich people are evil," you say, "Well, there is a guy by the name of Anderson, and he gave a lot of money for God's work. He gave it to ministries. He gave it to colleges. Hyles Anderson College was named after him because he helped fund Jack Hyles' school." Now, is this man evil? Well, he's not. Now, obviously, he's done a lot of good with his money. So when you answer a fool according to his folly, you're knocking the legs of their arguments out from underneath of them and keeping them from being wise in their own conceits. Because a conceited fool is probably one of the more dangerous things. It's kind of like a nuclear warhead rolling around on the back of a truck, not strapped down. "He that sendeth a messenger by the hands of a fool cutteth off the feet and drinketh damage." You can't trust a fool. If you rely on a fool, you're going to sabotage yourself. That's what it means. You're cut off your feet. You say, "All right, Ben, this is a critical message, and I need you to tell Bobby this, 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 and this." If Ben is a faithful messenger, he will come and tell Bobby, "Andrew said this, 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 and this." If Benny's a fool, he may not even bring the message. Or if he does bring the message, he's twisted it so much it no longer means anything. So you have to be careful who you're going to send the message to. Now, here's a question. We are God's messengers. Should we be faithful messengers or should we be foolish messengers? We should be faithful, right? The legs of the lame are not equal. So is the parable in the mouth of the fool. The lame person has legs. He just can't use them pretty good. You ever seen somebody who had a medical problem? There's a lady by the name of Barbara Riddle. She was one of my friends. She was my church friend. She was probably like 60 years old, bright red hair, and every time she walked, it's like one leg was 3 foot higher than the other, and she walked kind of like this. And it was an endearing trait of hers, but I'm going to tell you something. Here's the thing we need to remember, that it says, like the feet of the lame are not equal, so is a proverb in the mouth of the fool. The idea here is the fool cannot dispense wisdom. They'll try it, and it's painful. They draw the wrong conclusions from the wisdom, and they teach things wrongly. There was a joke. It said, why don't you make like a tree and leaf, right? So it was a pair, and so and there's a movie that one of the characters, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? And somebody smacks him in the back of the head and said, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. You said it wrong. That's the parable in the mouth of the fool. Somebody who said, a stitch in time saves 45 and gives you extra batteries on Sunday or something. It's like, what are you talking about? You need to be careful that you don't make your mentor and your teacher a fool. There are a lot of fools on the internet. As a matter of fact, there are more fools on the internet than there are wise people. If you just do a search on any topic, you'll find some really, really dumb people who start a YouTube channel who don't have the slightest clue about what's going on. The fact of the matter is, it says here that it's completely useless to try to have a fool teach. And as he that bindeth a stone in a sling, so is he that giveth honor to a fool. Binding means tying. So back in the day, they had a sling. And a sling is a piece of leather with a pocket in the middle. You put a rock in it, like David, and you spin it around your head 2 or 3 times, and then you let go one at the end, and it turns that rock into a bullet, and it goes flying to hit something. If you tie the rock to the sling, it kind of defeats the entire purpose of having a sling. That's what it's saying. If you give fool an honor, it just the slinger would sling over his head and let go, and nothing would happen. Giving honor to the foolish is the same thing. It's useless. You giving them any honor to the foolish only works towards inflating his already inflated ego. You're giving him ammunition for him to shoot himself in the foot. The fool should not be given honor. Oh, wise teacher of the internet who's read 3 words in the Bible, please teach us some of the deep messages that you found out by staring into the bottom of your hat. That's a reference to the seer stones that Joseph Smith says he used to translate the Book of Mormon. As a thorn goeth into the hand of the drunkard, so is a parable in the mouth of the fool. Once again, the fool cannot dispense wisdom properly. That when they try, it's painful. It talks about a drunk, because a drunk is usually so inebriated, something happens. When you get a splinter in your hand and that wood starts to slide inside of you, you go, ow, that hurts, and you stop. Unless you're drunk. If you're drunk, you keep moving your hand, the splinter goes even deeper. And it's saying, like a splinter in a drunkard, how it hurts, and it causes infection, and it causes damage, and all those things. So is a parable in the mouth of the fool. He can't relate the thing. It's, once again, the fool cannot dispense knowledge. The great God, verse 10, that formed all things, both rewardeth the fool and rewardeth the transgressors. You know, sometimes I was working on a song back there earlier, farther along, and it says, there are others living around us, never molested, though in a wrong. And it says, you know, why is this happening? It says, farther along, we'll know all about it. Understand that at the end of the day, God will get vengeance. God will give reward both to the foolish and to the transgressors. There will be a reward for their behavior. The next one is disgusting. I'm just going to tell you that. As the dog returns to his vomit, so the fool returneth to his folly. Why does God put disgusting things like that in the Bible? Because if you've ever seen a dog get sick and puke and then come back and lick it up, you're going, ah! And it makes this visceral, this gut felt reaction. You go, that's just gross. Well, so is a fool who keeps doing the same stupid thing over and over and over again. Like, you get into trouble and you get a fine. And you ignore the fine and you get in trouble again and you get a fine and you ignore the fine. And it gets to the point where they're like, I'm going to throw you in jail because of all these fines. And they just keep returning back to it over and over again. The serial philanderer, the guy who cheats on his wife, the lady who cheats on her husband. And they do it over and over and over again. This is the last time, I promise I'm going to be better now. No, you're not. You've had an opportunity to be better. You're not going to be better. So, just like the drunk who lost his job and lost his wife and lost his children and lost his health, lost every dime that he has to drink, but every time he gets $1, all he does is go out there and get more. I saw a sign, it basically said, the meth head has spent all of his money, but do you think that will stop him from smoking meth? No, he's going to go out and hustle and get the money. Don't let a meth head out hustle you, is what I was talking to the salesman. The whole point of the thing about this is this man keeps doing the same stupid thing over and over and over and over and over again and not learning. We need to have a learning curve where we learn more stuff and stop doing stupid stuff. If you don't have a learning curve, you have a learning plateau, a learning straight road that doesn't go anywhere. Peter says in 2 Peter chapter 2, for if after they had escaped the pollutions of the world through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that they are again entangled therein and overcome, the latter end is worse on them than in the beginning. For it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than to have known it, to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. But it happened unto them according to the true proverb, the dog turns to his own vomit again, and the sow that was washed to her wallowing in mire. So the fool returns to his vomit. You'll see people who come into the church and they'll make a profession and say, oh, I'm saved. Praise God, I'm saved. I hope you are. I pray that you are. I want you to be. But then you see in their life that they're returning to the vomit of their former life. And you tell that there's not been a transformation. Seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There's more hope of a fool than of him. Who's stupider than a stupid man? Somebody who thinks that they know everything. You can't teach a know-it-all. Do you realize that? You say, here, let me show you something. I know it, don't do it, I know it. You just leave me alone. What's funny is then they'll come back and say, okay, now show me this part. Okay, now, leave me alone. Wisdom bounces off of the arrogant like BBs off of a tank. All right? It just doesn't do any good. You try to talk to this person, but their arrogancy gets in the way, and they're worse than a fool. The slothful man says there's a lion in the way. A lion is in the streets. This is a restatement of Proverbs 22:13. Basically, the lazy individual, that's what slothful means, will look for any excuse, any reason not to go to work. I can't go to work today because my car was acting up. Well, your car might have been acting up, but if you wanted to go down to wherever and get whatever, your car acted. I've seen people who say, I don't have a reliable car, I can't go to work, but they'll climb into a car that's held together by baling wire, smoke pouring out of the back end of it, and just drive all over creation because of something that they want to do. I know one individual did not have a driver's license and got in a car that had been just destroyed. I mean, backed into stuff, dented all over the place, tags are dead, stickers dead, it's burning oil, billowing smoke out the back of it, but yet, boom, 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 up and down the hauler, they went constantly because of something they want to do. But he said, why don't you go get a job? Oh, I can't. My health is bad, and my car's not that reliable. That didn't stop you from driving 45 minutes to get something you wanted. But you know what? In other words, we make excuses. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've asked myself this many times. Am I giving an excuse or giving a reason? And I started thinking about what's the difference between an excuse and a reason. So, number one, when the excuse doesn't necessarily lead to the consequence. My mom was horrible about this. Rebecca would call her up and say, Jan, will you go out shopping with me? And invariably, my mom said, I have to wash my hair. What does that have to do with the price of peaches in China? Wash your hair and I'll be there to pick you up in 15 minutes. Whoop-de-doo, That doesn't follow. They're not logically connected. When the reason is arrived at after the decision, can you help me move? No. Why? And you go, if you go, when you're asked for a reason, that ain't your reason, that's an excuse. I can't go to work today. Why? You don't want to go to work. Now you're trying to find something to justify you for not going to work today. Does that make sense? Why didn't you do your homework? Well, when you know that you're lying, if you say the dog ate my homework when the truth is you didn't do your homework, that is a lie. And if you're lying about it, you're wrong. And when the decision is made from emotion and then we try to find a reason. I don't want to go and be around this person. I don't know if you're there, but there's been times that I don't like to be around somebody. And so when I'm going to be around them, I don't want to be around them, and it comes from an emotional place. And then I'll say, well, then they said, why don't you want to go? And you're like, well, the truth of the matter is I don't like so-and-so. I don't want to be around them. But you don't want to say that. As a door turneth upon his hinges, so doth the slothful turn upon his bed. The lazy, this is a sarcastic picture. The lazy man, the only work that he does is rolling over on his bed. The only thing he ever moves is when he moves around on the bed. He's lazy, doesn't want to do anything. Being lazy is resting before he done anything to be tired, and the lazy man just lays on his bed. The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom, and it grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. In other words, it said this man is so lazy, it bothers him to move his hand and say, I got to go over here and reach and get something to eat. Oh, it's just too much work. I remember an episode of The Simpsons. Once again, it shows that I've had a corrupted young youth. And in it, Homer Simpson goes to a nursing home. And he looks at somebody else who's on a ventilator and says, why do I have to breathe on my own when he's got a machine doing it for him? That ain't right. The lazy, it says here, won't even bring their hand to their mouth. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you're so lazy that you won't even feed yourself, you're going to starve to death. And that is more of an analogy, because there's lazy people who don't do the things that they need to do. It amazes me how many lazy people wind up getting into financial problems because they're too lazy to take care of things. Like we were talking this morning about ignoring warning signs. You're driving a car, and all of a sudden the warning light comes on, and you ignore it because you're lazy and you don't want to stop what you're doing long enough to take care of the problem. In my defense, the gas light that came on yesterday, I completely forgot about getting gas. I will say God answered that prayer. God is good, and all the time He is good. The sluggard is wiser in his own conceits, verse 16, than 7 men that can render a reason. 7 is a number of completion, of perfection. The idea here is he's got a full educated team, like a whole panel of wisdom. And the lazy man is so wise. He's convinced of his own intelligence. Yeah, that's what they all say. But I don't have to do things that way because I am so smart. I don't need to do that. I'm smart. He that passeth by and meddleth with strife belonging not to him is like one that taketh a dog by the ears. Now, back in these days, dogs were not pets. If you go up and you grab a hold of our dog Rosie by the ears, she'll lick your hand and wag her tail. If you grab Lilo by her ears, she'll nibble on your nose because that's just what she does. None of them will find it offensive. They'll be fine. But if you go up to a strange dog that doesn't know you, that's not tame, and you grab a hold of that dog, what is it going to do to you? It's going to bite you. And it's going to bite you pretty hard because it thinks you're attacking it. It says if you're walking by and there's a fight, there's an argument, and it doesn't concern you, and you poke your nose in it, it's just as smart as grabbing a stray dog that's a wild by its ears and not expect to be bit. In other words, mind your own business. There's a saying, don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. The idea is you don't need to start a fight. Well, you don't need to get into a fight. If it's not your business, keep on going. You know, how many problems in our lives would we avoid if we just minded our own business and kept our mouths shut and walked on? If you're on Facebook will teach you really easily to keep your mouth shut because there's a lot of stupidness on there. And you want to just comment and say, you know, here's your problem, but just let it go. Now, sometimes I'll get into theology debates, but I don't sit there and do stupid stuff. But as a madman who casteth firebrands and arrows and death, so is a man that deceiveth his neighbor and says, am I not in sport? It's somebody who lies to their neighbor, does something mean to their neighbor, said, I'm just joking with you. Come on, man, lighten up. He's as dangerous as the insane gunman who runs inside of a school shooting people, or somebody lobbing Molotov cocktails where you have a thing of gasoline with a rag in it that's burning and you throw it to cause fire. That's the idea. It causes damage and injury. Where no wood is, the fire goeth out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceaseth. As coals are to burning, coals and wood to fire, so is contentious man to kindle strife. There are two different groups here. Number one is a talebearer or a gossip. You ever met a gossip? A gossip is somebody who thinks that their job in life is to relate the news. I'm going to tell all what's going on. And they don't care if it's true. They don't care if it's false. The juicier the story, the better. They just want to tell the story. And the thing is that a talebearer will cause trouble. A gossip will cause trouble. It'll split up a church. It'll split up a marriage. It'll split up a family. And the other is the contentious person. The contentious person likes fighting. He likes to stir up stuff. He likes to get people upset. He likes to... It's, in other words, a troll. On the internet, there's these people called trolls who will do things just to goad people into getting upset. I don't understand that. It's not fun to me to get people all upset about stuff. I don't mind having a debate, but causing people to get all tore up and all, that's just stupid. But a contentious person loves it. And as long as you have one of those around, you're never going to have any peace. We should not have contentious people in the church. We should not have gossips in the church. If there is a gossip in the church, we need to deal with it. If there's a contentious person, we need to deal with that. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. When I was a kid, we were taught to say, y'all, if you remember it, say it with me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's hogwash. Now, it will not hurt you physically if somebody calls you names. It will not hurt you physically if somebody demeans and talks about your reputation. But if I went around and I started whispering that, did you hear about so-and-so? I think that they were out there doing this or doing that or doing whatever. And it's just spreading lies around and getting stuff stirred up. That right there will destroy people. It's destroyed people, and we need the words of a tale. It's not, gossip is not innocent. And if you are engaged in gossip, you need to keep your mouth shut. Somebody whispers something to you, it ends with you. You don't have to, it's not like the marathon where they're running and one person passes the baton on to somebody else. You don't have to pass the gossip on to anybody. Somebody whispers in your ear and it dies with you. And you know what? There'll be a lot less problems of when people whisper stuff into you, you just say, whatever, I'm done. Burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered in silver with silver dross. So, burning lips means lips that are either burning with flattery or venting anger and wrath or a profession of love or love of God. But the thing is, what the lips are saying does not match the content of the individual's heart. They said their heart is wicked, so the things that they are saying are just manipulative. They sound good. The pottery shards there are cheap, broken bits of pottery. And if you have this, the dross is the impurities off of silver. It's not silver itself, but it's nice and shiny. So you get this cheap, nasty looking piece of pottery and put this shiny stuff on it, and people go, ooh, that's pretty. In other words, it's talking about people who are being deceitful, right? The wicked heart. It looks pretty, it looks valuable, but it's just a covering. The truth is, it's a cheap, broken piece of pottery. Their words don't matter. Don't listen to them. They are liars. Watch the action. You can always tell where somebody can say anything they want to you, but watch their actions. How do they act? Not what they say. He that hateth dissembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there is 7 abominations in his heart. We call this bearing a grudge, and it's actually hatred and malice. Hate doesn't lead to anything good. Dissembling means to lie or to conceal your true motives. It's like, I love you, brother, when you're thinking, I want to stab you right in the gut right now. That's dissembling. God does not want us to dissemble. He wants us to be true. So it's like wearing a disguise. So the man with hate in his heart lies with his lips and holds that deceit in him. To the world, he thinks he's presenting himself as, oh, look how wonderful and how nice and how kind. But inside of him, he's thinking, you're an idiot, you're a fool, you're an idiot, you're a fool, I hate you, can't stand you. There was a lady I worked with. Her name was Quinn. One thing that was refreshing about Quinn is if she didn't like you, she just looked at you and said, I don't like you. I mean, you think, well, that's kind of rude. Well, yeah, but the thing is there's a lot of other people who don't like you, pretend like they're your best friend. At least you know where you stood with her, right? And it says, when he speaketh fair, believe him not, because the thing is, he's got nothing but wickedness in his heart. And it reminds me, and I don't know if you've ever read Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote this story called The Cast of Amontillado. And he said, 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I have borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. And the story is that he comes up to this guy, Fortunato, and he says, I bought some wine, but I think it's this expensive wine, but I'm not sure. And I know that you're a wine expert, but I was going to ask so-and-so. He says, no, I can take a look at it. He goes, no, I don't want to bother you. He's an expert. He says, well, I'm an expert too. I'll go with you. And he talks the guy into going down into the catacombs underneath of, I think it's in Italy. And he says, it's right through here. And the guy goes in there and he basically handcuffs him to the wall. And then he bricks the dude up in the catacombs and leaves him there to die. And the guy is just crying in misery. And he did that because he had hate in his heart. Now, he acted like he was all his friend. But the fact of the matter, just because somebody acts like they're your friend doesn't mean that they are. When hatred is covered by deceit, his wickedness shall be shewed before the whole congregation. You realize hatred cannot be concealed. You think you're hiding it, but you're not hiding it. It comes out. It comes out in the tone of your voice, the way you look at people, the way you act. And what it's saying is you're concealed hateful, that you're trying to, I don't hate him. It's going to come out and everybody's going to know about it, what it's saying. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. There's an old saying, Confucius said, he who seeks revenge digs two graves. Because generally, if you're trying to seek revenge, it's going to wind up killing you too, or destroying you too. And that's what this says. Revenge usually backfires. Digging a pit is devising something against somebody else. It's like digging a pit for them to fall in and die, and then you wind up falling in the same pit that you dug. The fact of the matter is, we should not seek revenge. You roll a stone up the hill, kind of like Wile E. Coyote waiting on your enemy to walk by. You're going to roll the stone down, he's going to get squished, and then you're going to be done with your enemy. But you start to roll the stone and it's not moving, you get in front of it just like Wile E. Coyote, rolls you over. In other words, what the Bible is saying is don't seek revenge. Leave the revenge up to God. You don't need to seek it yourself, because seeking revenge on yourself usually turns upon yourself and destroys you. And lastly, a lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth worketh ruin. Lies are not innocent, they hurt. Here it says the lying tongues hate those that are afflicted by it. And I like that word afflicted. It means something that causes pain and suffering. Your lies cause people pain and suffering. A flattering mouth is sucking up to people, trying to be a sycophant, trying to, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so great all the time. You don't really care about them. It's part of being deceitful, and it will work ruin. It makes you look dangerous, and you won't accomplish anything by it. All right. So that's all we have in chapter 26. We're very rapidly approaching the end of Proverbs. There are 31 Proverbs. How many days are there in the longest months?
29.
The shortest months have 29 days. The longest month has 31 days.